Hello everyone, Max vs Gaming here. Today I've decided to make an actual video for a change. I figured that this would be a nice change of pace from all the live streams that I've been doing as of late. Also, we recently passed 1,000 views on the channel, so thank you everyone for that. If you're new here, please consider checking out the rest of my content. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. If you do though, I'd very much appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel and press the bell button to enable notifications. With that out of the way, let's get started. You may have wondered why I've started live streaming again, and that's because I've been really getting into this neat little game called Genshin Impact. So you may ask, why this game? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. When I first heard that MiHoYo was making an open world game for the PS4, I was excited, elated even. I mean, open world games are probably my favorite ones to play, and since it was MiHoYo making it, I figured they'd do a pretty good job. After playing Genshin for a good 20 to 30 hours, I can say for certain that I am not disappointed with what I've seen. When I first started playing the game, the first thing I noticed was just how good its graphics are. I thought, wow, they really put a lot of effort into the immersion of this world. And that has stayed consistent so far throughout my playthrough. Some people might not like the art style choice that MiHoYo used, but I think that it works really well for this game, especially for the many scenic locations that you can go to. For someone who's never played the game before, the graphics are a little bit hard to describe, which is why I have gameplay playing on the screen so you can see for yourself. One of my favorite things about Genshin is the great views you get at the edges of cliffs and mountains, especially in the second region you visit, where half the terrain is made of mountains. In fact, the thumbnail you're seeing on my live streams right now is a picture I took from one of these views. The soundtrack for the game is also great. After running around the map for a while, I've seen that many places have their own unique soundtracks, and I like all of them. Out of all their games, I think that MiHoYo has spent the most time and money making the soundtrack for this one than any other game that they've created. I mean, with a budget of 100 million, I suppose it's kinda hard to go wrong, but I also enjoyed interacting with all the different characters in the game and learning their stories. Many of these have their own story quests, which I thought was pretty neat. For someone who spends a lot of time learning about the story and lore of games that I really like, the chance to learn more about the characters through their own personal quests was really interesting. Because of these, you can see that MiHoYo really cares about character development, and I think that's a very important part in almost every game. They've gone to great lengths to make sure that each character is unique not just in appearance, but in personality and gameplay as well. So I'm sure that players would easily be able to find a character that suits their tastes and playstyle. Even if they don't, MiHoYo is constantly adding new ones to the game, and with the addition of version 1.2 coming soon, they are sure to find someone then. But by far, my favorite thing about this game is probably its combat system. You see, in Genshin Impact there are 7 elements that each do various things. Each of your characters has control over a specific element, and when these elements combine with each other, they can create unique effects that usually end up dealing high amounts of damage to whatever enemies you're facing. Since you're allowed to make parties of 4, I was able to experiment a bit with these combinations to see what I could make my characters do. So, for example, if you want to freeze an enemy, you could affect them with the Hydro element, then switch to another character with the Cryo element, and use whatever ability they may have. Some enemies can even have their own elemental attributes. I didn't really understand why I needed to switch characters and use different elements when I started off, which made these kinds of enemies that much harder to deal with. I was more accustomed to using one character to beat everything in a game, but Genshin is a little bit different. If you don't deal elemental damage using the combinations I mentioned, you won't be dealing much damage at all, and it'll take you forever to defeat even the weaker enemies. Once I actually started getting the hang of things and switching my characters, I was able to push through everything no problem, and I had a lot of fun doing so. If you're interested in picking up Genshin, I would advise you to master the elemental system before you decide that you don't like how the combat works. One thing that I'm not sure whether or not I like is the domains, and these are basically like dungeons in the game, and you need to complete them if you want to get materials to level up your characters and weapons. There are dungeons out there where you actually have a map to explore, and I like these ones a lot, but there are other domains that just say, hey, here's a challenge to do, complete it and you'll get some materials. Of course, I totally get why these dungeons are so short. You don't want to spend 10 minutes working your way through a map only to get something that you never wanted. The constant repetition of grinding materials just isn't fun for me though, which is why I only do these challenge domains when my adventures absolutely need to be upgraded. Now, there are only 2 real problems that I've experienced while playing the game, and the first one of those being the wish system. So for those of you who don't know, the wish system is similar to loot boxes, and in it you have the chance to receive rare characters and weapons. Like most people, I don't care so much for the weapons as I do the characters, but I suppose it all depends on what people's priorities are. You can get the currency, which is called Primal Gems by the way, to do wishes without having to spend a single cent, but it takes such a long time that even if you grind to get the required currency, you'll only be able to do about, I don't know, 10 wishes a week. This would be fine with me if the rate for getting a 5-star wasn't 0.6%. And if you want a 5-star character over a 5-star weapon, you'd only have a 1 in 3 chance of getting one. I'm currently sitting at 2 5-star weapons and 1 character on my main account and only 1 5-star character on my second account. And I've spent a lot of Primal Gems up to this point. It's not all that bad though. The wish system does guarantee a 5-star every 90 wishes, and you are guaranteed a 4-star every 10 wishes. So even if you have really bad luck, you'll never get completely screwed over. The second of the two issues is the Resin system, and this makes things tough for players who want to grind. Resin is basically like your stamina in Genshin, and allows you to collect rewards from dungeons you explore and bosses you defeat. Once you run out of resin, you'll have to wait until it refills before you can collect any more rewards. If you're trying to get a specific material from a dungeon, for example, this can get really annoying because you have to wait for your resin to recharge before you can collect that material. I can't tell you how many times I've had to stop farming dungeons just because I didn't have enough resin to keep going. However, you can refill it yourself if you're willing to spend some in-game currency, but the currency that you use for this is rare and you can't get it all the time. MiHoYo is currently working on fixing this issue though, and they just recently increased the maximum amount of resin that you can have at a time. Most people agree that the fix wasn't enough, but MiHoYo listens to their community, which is why they even tried fixing it in the first place. So I'm sure they're working on making it better right now. To sum it up, even though Genshin Impact has some flaws, there are many more positive aspects of the game that make me want to keep coming back to play it. Sure, you may have problems with the resin and wish system, but there are so many more pros to playing the game, such as the great graphics, amazing soundtrack, diverse characters, exciting combat system, and everything else that makes Genshin what it is. So far, it's been an enjoyable game that I would really like to play with more people, and I hope that MiHoYo never stops adding new and exciting content to keep people coming back. This is already a fun and popular game, and depending on what MiHoYo does within the future, the game, along with its player base, could be far bigger and better than it already is. Thank you so much to everyone who stayed around to watch this whole thing. I usually don't make stuff like this, so I appreciate the support that I get when I do. Hopefully I can make more of this kind of content in the near future. I just don't have a lot of time to make videos, which is why I usually live stream. But if I can get like even 5 likes in this video, I'll think about making another video for Genshin Impact. So once again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time.